Welcome to Flight Club. We take off soon. Make yourself comfortable. We recommend getting a drink and headphones. Yes, headphones are essential. The first rule about Flight Club is you do talk about Flight Club. The second rule about Flight Club is you do talk about Flight Club. This flight will never stop. Welcome to Flight Club. Welcome to Flight Club. This flight will never stop.
Flight Club. Flight Club. Flight Club. Flight Club.
Welcome to Flight Club. We take off soon. Make yourself comfortable. We recommend getting a drink and headphones. Yes, headphones are essential. The first rule about Flight Club is you do talk about Flight Club. The second rule about Flight Club is you do talk about Flight Club. This flight will never stop. This flight will never stop. Welcome to Flight Club. We take off soon. Welcome to Flight Club. This flight will never stop.
Hello everyone and welcome to Flight Club. My name is Klaus Leopold and we are having hopefully some fun tonight. Flight Club is a show which is about flight levels and all topics that are somehow connected to flight levels. And yeah, I'm the co-host. This means there's a second host. Cliff, do you want to say hi?
Yes. Hello and good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be back with you again. I see we have a number of folks joining from all over the place. But tonight we have two wonderful guests who are joining us. We have Jochen and Carmen Knippenberg, who are joining us to talk about their work at Bosch Power Tools and the interesting things they've been going through over the last months and years. Do the two of you want to say hi quickly to everyone?
Yeah, hi, this is Jochen. Hi, this is Jochen, just joined from Bosch Power Tools. Very happy to be in this flight level club. Really looking forward to an interesting session, so post your questions. I'm the project lead for Agile Transformation, and we have quite a journey that we have been through the last couple of years, and actually aligning different Agile teams together is what we really worked on the last couple of years.
Go.
Yeah, so hello also from my side. My name is Carmen. I'm also with Bosch Power Tools and I'm in a business unit. This is a smaller part of Bosch Power Tools. It is the business unit Blue Industrialized, and there I am the Agile Master for our senior management, for a purpose area, Agile Master for a development team, and I'm also the expertise owner. This means the leader of our Agile Master community, which is connected in our business unit. Yeah, and I'm burning for agility, and for sure I'm also burning for flight levels.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, it's wonderful to have you all with us this evening. I think we're going to have some very interesting conversations. And yes, we will come to all of the topics in a minute. I just want to kind of set the stage a little bit. So if you think about over the last couple of months, the vast majority of us have been going through this situation that we all know by the name of COVID-19. And we've done this a little bit of sort of exploration of this topic in a couple of Flight Club. We talked to folks about remote coaching and adapting to transformation and all of this stuff. But this time we want to talk specifically about this in a hardware context. So Bosch Power Tools is doing some interesting things both with software and hardware. And of course, as Carmen was telling me while we were busy prepping, there are even scenarios of working with people, which I think is increasingly true for many of us. When we're working with folks who we've never even met, maybe in offices we've never been to. And so it's really quite an interesting experience to understand this. So we're going to have a little bit of a look at this situation through the lens of flight levels and through the lens of their own personal experiences. So before we get too much into the details, what I want to do is just remind all of you, if you're joining for the first time, we have a couple of things that are interesting that are on the go within the Flight Levels Academy. First up is obviously the Flight Club that you are listening to right now. If it's your first time joining us, please hit the subscribe and the like button. If you're enjoying the content, you will get this about future episodes. You're able to basically it helps us out in terms of promoting the content that we're putting out because more people see it, and it gives us some sense of what's resonating and maybe which content we should tweak a little bit or work a little bit harder on in future. So yeah, do that. The second thing to say is tell your friends. We like to joke and say that the first rule of Flight Club is to always talk about Flight Club. So tell your friends about the meetup group. Bring them along next time to the session, that kind of a thing. Would really appreciate any referrals or recommendations that you have from your side. Cool, so enough talking about us. Let's spend some time talking with Carmen and Jochen. So I suspect that some of the folks on the live stream have heard of this company called Bosch before, but maybe there are even some people who don't know about Bosch. But for sure, I don't even know so many details about Power Tools and what is specifically about this. So can you tell us a little bit about your context? You know, what is it that you do, and what is interesting about that space? So give us the sort of the background picture, if you will.
Yeah, Cliff, I mean, happy to do that. Carmen and myself, we are part of the big Bosch family, but we are specifically part of Bosch Power Tools. So what is Bosch Power Tools? Bosch is very famous for a lot of the car supplier initiatives and parts that are in many of the world's cars. But what we are doing is actually really hard stuff. Bosch Power Tools. So power tools to cut, to drill, to do whatever you want at your home, at your professional site. And we are around 20,000 people. We have plants all over the world, and we have 6 different business units. And yes, we are a consumer goods business, so we are very fast, very innovative. And a couple of years ago, we decided to go on an agile transformation journey, and with all sorts of different and really amazing stuff, new leadership initiatives, new collaboration framework, but also a huge reorganization. And in all these things, changing the mindset and changing the organization, we also find it very helpful to look into how align small agile teams together.
So
Yeah, great.
I'm
I
curious,
just also
Carmen,
would
maybe
like
you
to
can.
add-
Oh, we have a lag.
Yeah.
Sure, go
Yep.
for it. Sorry, I'm jumping in. I think I'm lagging slightly here, but go for it, Carmen.
Okay, I just would like to add what Jochen already said. For sure, I also would like to present a really great tool to you. This is also one of our tools. It is a saber saw, and I only can recommend you to buy the saber saw in order to trim now, or to start with the trimming of your trees, because they have to be made ready for the spring. Just buy it. It's really great. I really like it. And if you come to me, you will find a cellar full of blue tools. So I'm a fan of it. And yes, we started this agile transformation. I really like it. As I said, I am burning for agility, also for the flight levels. And this was really a point which helped us a lot to bring down to earth, let me say it in that words, the agility into our organization. By starting with implementing the flight levels from flight level 3 up to flight level 2 and to flight level 1.
Awesome.
And I also have
I
a-
see that.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
of course,
do I,
everyone.
just to be sure. I see Dave is making the same joke on the chat that I was making earlier. It's a saber sword to get rid of your neighbors. I'm hoping he means with the noise and nothing more violent than that. But yeah, my neighbors love me when I'm using this. Cool. So I just want to remind everybody before we get too stuck into the questions that I have prepared, we've got a couple of things that we're going to discuss and so on. But please, if you have something that you would like us to go further on, or you just want to ask a question of any kind, just shout in the chat. We weave them into the conversation as we go. It's meant to be sort of a conversation with all of you, not just between the 4 of us. So at any time, just shout in the chat and we'll weave it into the conversation. Cool. So you've given us a little bit of the context just in terms of the company and the actual product. But I'm wondering now, how many teams are we talking about? How many people are in this organization? Take us through a little bit of what does it look like and this kind of thing.
Yeah, perhaps I start from a PT level, Power Tools or holistic level. We are organized in 6 business units, all a little bit of different size. But we're talking a lot about people and knowledge workers, indirect workers. We have also quite a number of plants across the world, and we looked at very holistically our transformation. And one of the biggest business units that we have also is what we call BI, Blue Industrial. And I think Carmen knows much more about it, actually.
Yeah, we are organized in pretty high number of the so-called business teams. These are teams which has a business owner as a head, and he is responsible for I always say, from the cradle to the grave. So for every idea, innovation, until really the components or the tool itself is has to be stopped to be produced. And here I talk about 15 up to 15 teams we have. And in addition, we have the expertise teams. Here, for example, the expertise team is our logistic team or the controlling team or quality management team, where people experts, like it is called an expertise team, will give a support to the business teams. And so at the end, we handle approximately 2,000 people sitting in BI or in Leinfelden, and they are working now together in this new way of working, especially I would say not only the working, it's really in this new way of implementing more and more the agile mindset. And this is not only working the mindset, it's also about collaboration, about culture, about leadership, for sure, also about processes and methods. This cannot be forgotten. But it's also important to think about these soft factors.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that's particularly interesting in the context of what you're doing, and we're going to talk a little bit in a minute about the sort of the remote aspects of this, but you're doing a combination of things that are involving both hardware and software. Now, from my experience, most of the time I've seen people tending to do kind of one or the other, but you're actually sort of at the intersection of both. It's not just a complex hardware product, there is also software involved in a number of different ways. What for you is kind of unique about this experience? Like what is there that about hardware and specifically hardware and software combined that makes this somehow sort of a unique or new set of challenges for you?
Mm-hmm. I would say I started the challenge. The challenge is really that we have to think in a system, and this is what we are really now improving more and more. We are not at the end, but we have to think in systems because we cannot think only in hardware or only in software. Again, I like to show you my nice saber saw. There's really also software in, and it's for sure it is also hardware, and this has to fit together. This has to be produced or developed together so that at the end we really can achieve this start of launch and really start with the production and with the launch with the whole tool and not with only part of it. Then it would not work. And here we really had a lot of help. I come back to that again, sorry for that, but with our flight level boards, especially with the flight level board on level 2, where we defined that all our purpose and expertise areas, and here we are talking about the expertise areas, have a common flight level, a common board where they can really make transparent what is the status of the hardware, of the software, how does it have to be combined. Also, again, we are not at the end and we are not perfect. We are improving continuously, but nevertheless, it really helped us or will help us in the future to bring this really together and to think really in a system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would imagine for a lot of people, when we think about working in sort of an agile way, for many people, this means, whiteboards and Post-it notes and handing tickets around between people. And I think at some level, there probably is a little bit of, some kind of ticketing and handing off some information. But in reality, I would assume that just passing tickets around and sort of escalating requests between teams is probably not kind of the most effective way when you're designing a product that is so tightly coupled and integrated. For me, I'm curious, how do you handle this tight coupling? And I mean, in my sort of imagination, the motor and the battery sort of sounds like a simple concept for people, but the complexity of making those two things actually really work well together. And for sure, there's even more behind that. Can you talk a little bit about how you handle this kind of really working on a tightly coupled? What does that look like in reality?
Yeah, for sure. What I already mentioned is this is also the way of collaboration. I agree to that. Before COVID, we worked really with these Post-its and it really worked and you need it. This is really a part of make it really transparent, but that's not enough. You have really to collaborate together, to talk to each other, to communicate very openly and very transparently. And I would say this is really another part of success factor that you really can handle or combine all those software, hardware, motor relevant topics. And for sure, not only coming from the expertise, we have another complexity. This is according to the business teams, because as I said, the business teams, they are responsible for the product range, and the expertise is hardware, software, motor, and so on. They just work as a service provider. And so you can imagine collaboration is a success factor. And another success factor is that we have clear rules, but it's not a rule like you think you have to do this, and if you don't do that, you will be killed. No, it is a kind of a guideline, of a framework where we can follow and how, especially in this case, development engineering has to be followed and to be done.
If I can follow up on this, so when it comes to complexity, so I mean I've worked with you guys and I've seen what's going on. I've also worked with banks and insurance companies and organizations who are basically just in IT. So what I really see as a big difference is you have way more specialists. And in IT, we often think like a backend developer is not able to do some front end stuff and stuff like this. But when it comes to your domain, at least what I understand of it, it's really like, I mean, you cannot tell a physicists just go over to the chemistry guys. They are just doing some liquid stuff, so pour some liquids together and everything will be fine. So it's really like it's not in the same profession. So you have different professions, and that's of course much bigger than when we just think about software. Of course, we also have our lawyers, we have our marketing guys, we have procurement, but you have this stuff also, right? So that's really what I see as the huge complexity. And I think there is a question which goes a little bit into this direction already. If I try to bring this in, oh, here we go. Manuel Müller is asking like how you synchronize the hardware and the software teams, or are they combined in cross-functional teams? So this is just like hardware and software, but we can take it even a little bit broader, like all these different specialists, where it's really an entire profession behind it, where you have to study physics, I guess it is.
Yeah, got it. And be very honest, because it is so normal for me, I did forget to mention it. For sure, we are working cross-functional. I say for sure because it's so normal for us, and I agree to also do that. What you said, Klaus, I cannot tell. For example, a marketeer that he or she has to develop some software or hardware. This does not work. But all our teams are cross-functional. And as I mentioned, for sure, we have experts, especially according to hardware, motor, and software. That's not a question, but they are working together in those teams, in those, let me call them product teams. And here they are working really cross-functional. And I think that's also a success factor that we are really used to that. So sorry, I really forgot to mention it. Yeah, but this is our secret.
Yeah, but perhaps I think I totally agree, Carmen, with what you said. I think perhaps just to add on that, I mean, if you think in software or hardware, there's an idea to build a certain platform that can be used by multiple business teams, but then you need all these application guys, either engineers or software guys, who are sitting in the cross-functional team to make it really adaptable for your product and so it's more the application, and they need to synchronize very well together. So that's perhaps answering the question from Manuel Müller. So
yeah.
I was intrigued. A question by Kurt Peterson here saying, did the existing culture of Bosch help or hinder the across-team coordination? And basically, just following up with that, is it how did it help or how did it hinder, and what is the existing culture at Bosch like?
Yeah, I mean, let me put it like this. I think we started also this agile transformation with the clear principle that we want to build permanent cross-functional teams, so that people who are coming from different backgrounds basically find a new home base to really focus on our user and developing great products for our user. And we didn't really want to have people assigned only on cross-functional projects, and then they meet once a week, and then the marketer leaves the meeting and says the engineer doesn't really get it, and the other way around. So we really, in that way, I would say, yes, we also saw a clear potential for changing the culture. So the cross-functional working was happening before, but really feeling ownership for the user experience and really feeling ownership for what actually our users will use at the end, and not have any excuses of, well, it's not my job and this is not my responsibility. This is really what we tried to change, and we made substantial progress in that. Yeah.
And I would like to add something more general. Sure. According to this culture, it really starts with everybody. Often we were asked, okay, what does this really mean, this organizational culture? And I always say it is up to you and you. Everybody of us build up this culture. And this also started or continued when our leaders changed their culture, really from this command and control. This was okay in the former times, now into really this all the positive leadership, like enabling, coaching, giving trust to the people, empower the teams, and so on. And this is also, I would say, meanwhile, it is not impediment. It is really also one of the success factors, because nearly everybody in the PT supports it and tries to live and to change the culture, so that we really can implement or can improve our agile mindset.
I mean, maybe we can follow up with Bastian's question here. I mean, it goes a little bit into this direction of culture again. So he's asking like, okay, how have you achieved this? Like that people are really collaborating and helping each other in front of the board instead of just reporting, you know, these report meetings. I have finished this work package kind of thing. So because that's two different things, right?
Yeah, I think
I would say, yeah, okay, Jochen, you can go.
no, I mean, perhaps we can play the ball back and forth between you, me and you, Carmen. But I think that the main message was that you really need the leaders supporting a different meeting structure as well. So I think it was very good that we changed the meeting structure in those business units, especially where we have the flight levels, to say, you know, we don't have a one-day status report meeting from our projects. We cancel all these meetings and put not a new meeting additionally on top, but we really have a meeting where we try only no status, but just if you have a problem, please raise it and you have a chance to that. And I think, Carmen, you hosting that meeting in your business unit, I think it's a great question also to go in detail from your side.
I would like to add, really, especially from my own experience, according to that get work done by people, there is really there starts more and more a kind of a team pressure, and this is not a bad thing, it's a really good thing. And this team pressure means that for sure I am challenged if I don't work on my tasks, on my topics, and people that my team members, really my peers, will ask me and will also give a bit pressure to me. But on the other hand, they also will support me if I tell them, okay, I'm really there's too many workload for me, I cannot handle it, or whatever is behind. Then there is really help behind and support behind. And this is, again, I can tell it from own experience. I really experienced this when I was in this agile transformation team in the former days. We were really there a very great team, and we did a lot of work, and that was really a challenge, and it was really fun to achieve our sprint goals. It was really fun, and everybody tried to reach this or achieve this goal, and this was great. And this was a team pressure, and I did not feel without energy. This got not lost, and I think this is really what is also changing more and more.
So there's a couple of interesting questions around culture that are coming up here, but one of the things that I find intriguing with this is it sounds like what you have is quite a strong culture of collaboration and focus on the customer need that was pre-existing. And I think this is something that is interesting for two reasons. One is that what it shows for me is that you're kind of working with a culture that is somehow already existing. But I'm curious how much of the culture was kind of a change, or, you know, I think very often what happens is people are in the process of kind of introducing some new methods, tools, and frameworks and all of this, but they're also trying to get people to kind of behave or kind of change their default behaviors from kind of one extreme almost not. I think so often what we face inside organizations is really like an overload of change and just so many things. So if you could talk a little bit about, you know, what were some specific things that you had to change, and how did you create focus on those key things rather than just saying, let's change all the things? And, you know, as we know, this creates some challenges.
I think, how should I say it? I think it was a very big initiative that we started on this journey a couple of years ago. And I think we always, of course, we named it Agile Transformation, but we always said it's a holistic approach and we look at it from a holistic picture. And there it was clear from the beginning, we want to look at leadership styles, at collaboration styles, at the organization, at processes and methods. And I think based all on a very open communication. And I think by living it also from the top, from our top senior management, it really changed the style in terms of, well, there's a different way of talking to each other. There's a different way of, I don't need to have the 150% slide deck ready. It can be the 80% solution to have a discussion going. And I think this culture change is, of course, something that is happening bit by bit. And is, as Carmen stated earlier, it happens actually with every one of us, right? You need support from above, but you need also the individuals on every level to change their mindset, to not wait until somebody tells you what to do, but to use your brain and proactively think how we can solve our user needs. And that empowerment of people and also giving them the autonomy to think and act, I think this is a never-ending journey. So it's far from we are reaching 100% in my vision, but we made substantial steps, and I think that's a great thing, that you start small and keep going.
I like to
Yeah.
something. I understand completely what you said, and I think what also was helpful for this change of behavior, that we started with volunteers. Everybody who was really interested could join a group, and this group in the very first beginning was responsible to reorganize our organization. And there was clear nobody will be kicked off, and at the end we will be the same number of people as we when we started. And this what became true, and it became true by the volunteers, and the people themselves could, for sure, in a certain framework, but they were able and allowed to define their organization by themselves. The second point I would like to mention as also a huge success factor was what Jochen also already mentioned, the leaders. And we really had a commitment from the leaders, from our senior management from the beginning and really until now, until today. And this is also for me a huge success factor, because we also have seen and learned that also our leaders, they changed their behavior. They changed their way to talk to us, to talk with us, to talk about things. I never thought that we would have such a huge transparency also on financial figures, but we have it. It is normal for me now, and this is what I learned when I'm in contact with others, that it is not really normal outside.
Good one. So maybe this answers, I think, one question that's somehow here. So Manuel Müller again asked another question: how you guys brought this culture change in place, bottom up or top down? So what I understood now, it was a little bit top down, but it was not like they pushed it into the organization, but it was like lead by example somehow. So be the change that you want to see, kind of, as Gandhi would say.
Correct. I would like to add, in my opinion, it was top down, like you said, Klaus, but it was also a kind of bottom up, because it was, in my opinion, as far as I remember, the first time that really the people, the volunteers, had the chance to create or to define their organization by themselves. Again, in a certain framework, but nevertheless, and they could argue why they would like to organize this new or restructure the organization in that way. And I think this was really this was really coming from bottom up. So I would say both
I really like that.
And I'm really convinced, if you do not have the leaders and the leaders' commitment, you can stop it immediately. This is what we need. Because again, we're talking about a change. It's nothing more than a change. And a change can really be successful and be started if I, as a leader, say, okay, I also would like to go with this change, but this means I also have to change myself. My behavior, whatever, my style of talking, my style of collaboration.
Yeah. I love what you said about using volunteers as well. I think that idea of people being able to step forward and say, I'm excited about this, or I'm particularly passionate about that space. We see this so much, and I say specifically with the work that I'm doing right now with Flight Devils, but just generally in my experience as a coach and as a facilitator of change. If you work with the willing, you have far, far, far more success, or more likelihood of success, because you're no longer fighting an uphill battle trying to convince people to do something that they maybe don't see the value of. And so really the approach that I take in like the workshops that I run, for example, is to say, we're going to discuss some ideas, but at the end of the day, you need to decide which ones of these you're taking forward. And so you were kind of looking for folks who want to run with stuff rather than saying, here's 75 things that you have to do. It's much more, your organizational context better than we will. So it makes sense that you're involved in decision making. In many cases are completely the one holding the reins. So yeah, really very much resonates with my experience on this side.
Cliff and I would like to add something to that, what you said, agree completely. And when you start to do this, then you really start to empower the people to or enable them to become really self-responsible, self-organized. And this is again coming back to Scrum or Agile mindset. This is what we would like to strive. Really, people they are adults. They do not need somebody who tells them what to do now and what to do in 1 hour. But also we had and we have to enable the people really to become this self-managed. But this starts really also with volunteers.
Yeah. I'm so glad that I hear more and more companies talking about how their leadership are realizing this. Like, that everybody else there is an adult, everybody else there is quite smart. They can put some interesting ideas in the mix. You just have to create an environment where that can actually be the case. If you're telling them what to do every 5 minutes of the day, as you said, it's not going to be very likely that people get involved in those things. There just isn't the opportunity. I want to change the topic a little bit slightly. Cool. So I want to change the topic slightly. We sort of framed this as kind of talking about your circumstances of working remote. Now, the question that I have is kind of, obviously in March last year, some things started happening around the world, and this has created a little bit of change and chaos that maybe wasn't so expected for a lot of organizations. One of the big questions that obviously comes up with this is that everybody's going remote and using digital tools and so on. But I'm curious, as a sort of a warm-up question before we get to kind of the tools and those kind of things, what for you has kind of been the key things that have changed as a result of COVID and so on within the organization? How different is your world today to what it was?
I mean, perhaps speaking from a PT perspective, I think we were very adaptive and flexible because we had to, like all others, had to change quite quickly. But we saw that actually this implementation, for example, of our agile organization, and specifically the putting place of our agile master and agile coaches in those teams, actually helped a lot to organize the work in a way. Now it's remotely. It used to be in the office, but I think people were more capable to see we have people who will be responsible or help us to orchestrate that, right? And I think this change in working mode was quite well perceived, and also perhaps like in other companies as well, people were afraid of before. If somebody would have said we tested, nobody would have said that seems like a big risk. But overall, we are very happy to see that efficiency, productivity of teams didn't go down. And I think that's also giving a lot of self-confidence to the teams and the people in the teams to say we can face some critical challenges. Of course, some people are also looking forward to go back to the office to have a bit more socializing than only virtual coffees. But I think it gives a lot of confidence that people and teams are ready to also work in this environment.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because
it was not really completely.
Sorry, Carmen, go for it.
Yeah, because we are working. We also worked before this March topic worldwide, and that was often needed that we had remote meetings, and so it was not really that big change. But again, I also agree to that what Jochen said. Maybe if there would not have been this topic in March, maybe we would not really be used now to work really completely remote. And if somebody tells you cannot make team building or a retrospective remote, I would say just try it and you will see it will work. It will work perfectly.
Yeah, I think this is the thing. A lot of us, we just hadn't experienced these things before, but now that we've been doing this for a few months, luckily, in a way, almost we were forced to do it, because I think otherwise some of us might have stopped halfway and changed, because, as we know, change is hard, learning new skills is hard, this kind of thing. But now we're in a situation where I think a lot of companies are saying actually there's a lot of meetings that we might have flown people across the world for or got together in some way. And probably in the future, we keep them remote because we know that at least for some parts of the conversation, it works well. Obviously, Jochen, as you said, the social aspect of having a coffee or a beer or something together, maybe we lose some of this, but it's quite interesting. So I want to kind of circle back a little bit to this question around kind of tools and so on. You've given us a bit of some of the changes that have happened. But I'm assuming that a lot of your tooling is now digital and virtual, specifically your flight level boards and so on. And if you want to sort of talk a little bit about what specifically you're using, but I think there's a particularly interesting question. Ben Parry is asking, how do you find the energy levels compare for you on your flight level 2 board when you were doing it in person versus now you're doing everything remote? What's your experience on this?
To be honest, I would say, first of all, there's no change of the energy level. It's here because, again, often we were not located only on one location, so we had to work with a camera, and this was also not perfect. And now, meanwhile, all our boards, independent of which level, are now we have now in a digital version. I think nobody would like to go back to a physical board. And I think the energy increased because everybody had the same chance, and this is also what we got as a feedback. Everybody has the same chance to see the same and to be able. We use, it is called virtual team board. This is a Bosch internal tool. This looks, if you look at it, it looks like a physical board where you have your post-its. But it is digital and there can work, I do not know how many people on the same time, but I think more than 10, and it really works. And this is really also like you stand before this physical board and work or discuss or move your cards. So the energy is not lost. I would say instead, my feeling is it is increased. Why do I say increased? Because this is also experience not only I make, but also I make. We are more efficient. We do not need really this scheduled half hour or scheduled 1 hour. We need less time. It is more concentrated. On the other hand, I also would like to emphasize that we do not lose this small talk. I'm a Swabian, and small talk is not normally nothing because they start warm. But I learned also, according to this remote working, start with a small talk, and we do that. And I am not nervous, and I know, we will come to the point where we really go into the working mode, but we need it, and it really helps. It helps myself, to be honest, to bring me back to earth, to focus me on the point we are now talking about.
I think it's really interesting because what you've done with this tool is you're using something that to me sounds like it's a bit of a, I don't want to say a blank canvas, but it's quite flexible in that you can put things where you want and design it how you want. Is this to me sounds like one of the big things that a lot of people struggle with. I don't want to bash specific tools, but a lot of folks are using things quite rigid and sort of you have to use a certain workflow or a certain setup, and there's not a lot of options in terms of what you can put there and how you can design and change things. And I'm assuming that it's quite easy for people to adapt it if they want to sort of change. We add a column, take it away, we add a new type of work, something like this. What's your experience been with this? Is it quite easy to adapt, and how have you found this working?
Very easy to adapt, especially for me as Agile Master. I am responsible for our flight level, for our highest flight level. And it was really a huge work for me to reorganize our huge board. And this board was, I do not know exactly, 50 meters, something like that. And this was really a huge work for me. And now it is virtual. And if somebody comes and asks me, we should change and we should add this swim lane or skip that swim lane because of da-da-da-da. And we say, we will do this. So this is just easy for me. I do not know, 21 minutes, maybe also 2 minutes, but not longer. And in former times, I needed really a whole Friday afternoon to rearrange it.
Yeah, that's
and this is really also something I like and what brings me to the smile.
Yeah. That's usually what I say to folks when they ask about tools. I say, as long as you can change it, because if you can't change it easily or you have to ask somebody else's permission to do it, probably this is not resulting in very much change very often. So Yeah, flexible is beating rigid in my experience.
And user-friendly, really. And this is what I can tell you. If it is not user-friendly, I always say, "Bah, it's nonsense." This I do not have a lot of patience. It must be user-friendly. I say, if I have to start every time when I use it a new training, just forget about it.
Yeah. So there were two questions about metrics, and I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about those. So the first one is John Coleman. John Coleman, agility chef, actually. I'm assuming this is a title stuck inside the name. I like this. He says, I'm curious how much attention is given to reviewing flow analytics. And then Ben Perry is asking is, how did you decide your target lead times by value stream? You can take your thoughts on those questions.
So I would say I pick up the second question about this target lead time. I think there is not really a change because in the plant or in the value stream, there is not that huge change if we compare it to the former times. So they worked always in value streams. This means this value stream is responsible for one product or one certain product range, and it was defined before and it is defined now. So there I do not see a huge change. Jochen, do I see it right?
I think there's... Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think we have had the value streams before. I think we aligned them to our business teams. So to really have like a mini enterprise within a company. So to really have like a closer connection between guys who develop products and guys who assemble products, that they really talk to each other also in a much more organized way. The question from the other guy about the flow analytics, to be very honest, and that's probably hard to believe for a German engineering-driven company. We are measuring a lot, but it's in terms of flight levels and in terms of collaborating with each other. The measurements in these meetings is not the key. The key is more that we find space to talk to each other to solve roadblocks. I think there, some people would say you could add a lot of analytics and flow analytics into Carmen's BI boards. The value add there, I'm not quite sure if it's really relevant. So I think it's more, we focus more on bringing people together to solve problems and really measure, okay, how much is our development time for a specific product, but not really on the board level, unless, Carmen, you have advanced it in the last couple of weeks, I'm not sure. But
I mean,
you're completely right.
If I would also put my 2 cents into this, so if I hear a question like, okay, what are the lead times or something like this or the target lead times, this would actually mean that we think we have a problem with our lead times. So because the flight levels idea of approaching metrics is a little bit different, I think, than in many other approaches. Sometimes I see it like this, okay, we need to gather all these measurements because we can, and if we just analyze our lead times, everything is fine. The flight level approach is a little bit different here. So it always starts with the question, what do we want to change? So in terms of what do we want to improve? And if we know what we want to improve, then we figure out, okay, and how can we measure that we are actually getting there? So a question like, okay, do we see a change in lead time? There needs to be a question before we actually try to answer this question. And this is, are we having a problem? And I think there's another, like maybe a small mismatch in terms of wording. When I understand Bosch correctly, when you talk about the value stream in your Bosch language, you're talking about when stuff is being assembled in the plants, right? That's the value stream.
Right.
Yeah. When we talk about the value stream in not only flight levels, I guess in a broader sense, it also includes the development, like how are we actually developing stuff. So maybe there's a mismatch in language. So I really when I started to work with Bosch, I was talking about value streams. You guys were talking about value streams, but we were talking about different things. I was like, okay, that's interesting. So, and it took some time to figure this out. So, but yeah, so in So, but what I take away from your what you said before, in the plans there was not much of a change. These value streams, like how they are working, is now somehow connected to the development and somehow aligned to the development. And I think that's the big change in it, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah, wording is always nice.
You're right.
Yeah, just picking up on the metrics thing, I find it fascinating. I've worked with a couple of different organizations where we measure all the things, or we try to measure all the things. And the conversation I've usually tried to provoke is something along the lines of like, if you had that metric and it like you knew the data, you had some historic trend of it, and suddenly it went up 50% or it went down 50%, what would you do differently? And the point of this is to try to ask the question of like, you know, what would we actually change? And if we don't have a good answer to that, because often we're just measuring stuff because we like having metrics, because it's a bit of a safety net or something like this. But if you don't actually know what you're going to do differently, or you don't have some idea you would do something differently, even as a result of that significant change, maybe you don't need to have all of those metrics. Just focus on, as Klaus said, the ones that you're actually trying to address right now, because that helps. You know, gathering metrics is not for free. Making any changes is not for free. So, yeah. Cool. So I want to just quickly take a minute and remind everybody, if you've enjoyed this session, please hit the like button. Really helps us to get our content out there. Other people that you like, it helps us a lot. The second piece, of course, hit the subscribe button. It's really helpful for us as well. Yeah, basically, you'll get notifications as well. You'll find out about future events and so on. We're not only doing flight levels content, there are some other things that are in the works as well. So hit the subscribe, hit the like, and as I said before, tell your friends about Flight Club. I think we probably have time for one or two more questions, and then I have something to wrap up. I'm just having a look here. Ben is asking, Ben Parry says, how do you propagate the top 3 strategic priorities? How do they, you know, how do you prevent them from getting lost as they change over time?
Hopefully I get that right. It's I mean, the top 3 strategic priorities, is it really top 3? Perhaps a little bit more in certain areas. But I think what is important that we always come to stick to the, out of the strategy, have the top strategic priorities defined and really focused on. And if it's like really simple visualization, for example, in front of the boards, is it like really making sure that the teams, when they set their team targets, really know these top priorities that they need to work on and really have their own guess about how we as a team can contribute to these targets? I think that's probably something which we implement, what we call a team target workshop. So we move away from individual goal setting rather to a team goal setting, and there the top 3 or top 5, whatever in which business unit priority is really the gold standard, how the teams, that's what they need to define their team targets of the year. And I think that keeps them, you connect the top 3 strategic priorities to the objectives of the team. And I think that helps to keep the team focused on what they contribute to the strategic options, but also to keep focus on it.
That sounds good. I like this. So one last thing, I just want to tell everybody, in case you haven't already heard about this, we have a thing called the Introduction to Flight Levels. It's an online self-paced course. If you're interested to learn a little bit more about flight levels and you want to kind of fill in sort of your fundamental knowledge, really a great way to start is to take the course. I link it in the chat now, so you can see a link for it. We offer a discount code for anybody on the live stream. If you use that link, you get 20% off, and it's already only 100 euros, so it's not very expensive anyhow. Check it out if it sounds interesting to you. Cool. And before I ask you my last question, I actually want to ask you one last question from Bernd. He is asking, Bernd Kudeker is saying, do you use OKR strategy and kind of color lens? If not, what do you use instead?
So, answer from BI, yes, Bernd, we use OKRs and we use them, or we started in 2019 with the OKR method. We had a lot of learnings, and meanwhile, this year, I'm really happy, a happy Agile Master, because we now reduced our huge number of objectives and our huge number of key results to a good amount. It's not 5 and 5, but it's near to 5. And I really like it. And what I like more is that my business unit members, so the senior managers, they also agree to that. They also really drive it and bring it and push it into the organization, but they do not have to push it a lot, because also from the whole leadership team, it is really accepted completely, and I really like it. And it does now, or we started now, to bring it down to earth, down to the teams, and there's also nearly no resistance. So yes, we use and we are happy to do it. And we have to improve it, for sure.
Let's go. Just one sentence. Maybe you experience some awkward silence always in between. This is because we have a huge latency this time here, so it's really quite hard to have this conversation from a technical terms for us here. So sorry for that. We will try to fix this next time, but I don't know what I need to do, but we will figure it out. So yeah.
Cool. So the last question I wanted to ask you, just to kind of put a point on the end before we thank you for your time and say cheers to everybody, was just if you think about this journey that you've been on, adapting to remote, adapting to flight levels, what tips, maybe we can get something from each of you, but what tip or insight would you offer to those who are listening on the stream, who are maybe at a different space in their journey or just starting out? So what would your tip for those on the live stream?
Yes, I mean, if I want to give a tip, I think find people who drive together the change with you. It's easier if you're a couple of them. It doesn't need to be the whole organization who pushes forward, but find a group of people who thinks the same. Start with the biggest group possible. That doesn't necessarily mean with the whole organization, but try to get the buy-in from some senior management to find a group that is bigger than only one team, to really also have this different collaboration impediments, and also manage your self-expectation. It's a long road, but you need to be both and have compassion and endurance, and it's worth the journey.
And I would like to add only one sentence. So do not forget, it is a change. A change needs time, but nevertheless, keep on going through this change.
Cool. Very cool tips to close. I see that Keshav is saying that the link is not working. I pasted it again in the chat. This one should be working. Sorry, I see what it's done. Technical errors on my side. There's a space missing, yes. Cool. So, thank you everyone for joining us on the live stream this evening. It's been wonderful to have you with us. So many really, really great questions. And of course, I want to say thank you very much to both Carmen and Jochen for joining us this evening and sharing all of your knowledge and experience. I hope that we get to do this in the future. Thank you for making your time available, and good luck as you continue on this journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
Thank you,
Thank you, guys. Goodbye.
Cool. Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.